Hello, everybody. Recording live from somewhere. It's Zach Couples with episode 3 of Movement Debrief. I know this one's a little bit late. Well, it's not late for me, but it might be late for you folks on Central Time and Eastern Time, and that is because I'm in a new time zone. I'm in Mountain Standard Time, and I'm going to be continuing west. So it's only time is it? It's like 8 o'clock where I'm at. And the reason why I'm in a new time zone is because I have a new job. And that means I'm no longer in the NBA. I was let go. And I wanted to talk about that experience a bit because I think this whole thing was perhaps one of the greatest learning experiences that I've undergone in probably my entire professional career. And I think on the interwebs, you see when you go through Facebook and Twitter, you see everyone's successes. And rarely does anyone talk about their failures. And so I thought I would use this as an avenue to do that. And here's kind of, what I was told was my position was eliminated. And I want to talk about what's called the Dunning Kruger Effect. So I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it's a psychological term. And basically what it means is this effect is when someone is first starting out learning something, they think that they are an expert at that and they know everything. And then as they continue on their path, the amount that individual thinks they know decreases. And then eventually it rises back up. So we get kind of this, I'm an expert, crap, I don't know anything, okay, I know a little bit over time. This is where that old adage, the more you know, the less you know, comes from. And I think that early in my career, and probably even up to most recent times, I was on that tail end a little bit longer than I thought, and I think it's because of a lot of the early successes I had, a lot of the continuing education I took, and ego. I think ego drives a lot of us, drives us to being successful and where we are today. But it can be a double-edged sword, right? The philosopher Aristotle, I think it was Aristotle, it was Plato or Aristotle, talk about the golden mean. And that's where you have the perfect medium of two extremes, where you have ego on one end and extreme humility on the other. And I think for me, ego kept me in the early part of that Dunning Kruger effect for a lot longer. But then it took an experience of going into professional sports where I didn't know as much about it, and going through this experience where it put me in my place essentially and got me at the lower end of that curve. And I'm grateful for that because it's pointed me into directions and things that I want to learn or I needed to learn that I may have not looked at before or maybe brushed off at learning before. So I want to talk about how can we combat this. And I think there's two big keys to combating the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the first one is to always have a beginner's mindset. Always try to be improving yourself and your processes and trying to get better. If you get patients better in 2 visits, how can you make those 2 visits even better? Maybe your interaction sucks and that's something you need to improve upon. Or maybe you're not good at selling yourself from a business standpoint. Always be a beginner, always be wanting to learn, always be trying to get better at your craft. And not just your craft, but being a person. I think the other thing with this is to ask yourself when you're around someone is, what can I learn from this person? There's a story that Lorimer Moseley talks about where he gets bit by a snake in the bush, and he's with a boring talker, as he calls that. So someone who is incredibly boring to be around. And I kind of play this game when I'm around a boring talker. And that's, what can I do to find something interesting about this person? And inevitably I do, if you ask enough questions and you ask the right questions. And that's because we always have something that we can learn about someone or from someone. You may work around clinicians who are practicing like it's still 1980. Or you may you may have a boss that just knows nothing about the business. But there's still things you can learn from those people. And I challenge you to get into that low part of the Dunning Kruger effect by finding out what you can learn from people. The other thing I wanted to talk about from this experience is embracing failure. When I was first told that I would no longer be with the team, I was sad. I mean, I loved what I did, and it was a rewarding job. But I really only felt that one day, and I think that there's strategies that we have to use when we're in a situation in which we fail, and we have to embrace failure because we are the sum of our mistakes. Failure, hurt, mistakes, all of these instruct. They're a way to course correct something in the future. And I think the first thing you have to do when you're in any situation, good or bad, is detach. See, if you are in the weeds, see if you can look at the top of the hill from the forest and be objective about what happened or is happening. Because when you look at it from a different perspective, you're going to get more out of it and you won't let emotions cloud your judgment. I think the second thing you need to do is own your failures. If you can take ownership of something that you did or didn't do, or anything that you've done that you could have put some type of control in, you need to do that. And the reason why that is because if it's something outside of your control, there's nothing you can learn from that experience. Whereas if you make your failure something that you own and is in your control, then it's something you know you can improve upon and get better at. So I think you have to own those experiences. Another thing regarding failure is to not have regret. Regret is pointless. It's past tense decision making that you can't do anything about the past. This is not something we can change. You have to use failure as instructions as to what to do next, or what can I do differently in the future, or how can I better myself now. During this experience, I've used my failure as an opportunity, and it's got me back into writing. It's renewed my interest for that. It's helped me connect with people who I don't normally talk to. I reached out to many, many people throughout my time in between gigs. And, I did a lot of soul searching and learned to keep my ego in check. And not only that, I've done a lot for myself personally in other ways. Like I started training my ass off because I'm trying to look like I'm 51. And if you know Bill Hartman and you've seen his transformation, you'll get that. So failure is an opportunity, and we have to realize that. So whenever I experience any failures, I'm not sad. I'm not regretful, and I'm not blaming anyone. I'm taking ownership, and I'm thankful. And I think we'll call that it for tonight. Some housekeeping things. I put up a new blog yesterday. It's on the squatting bar reach. It's a fantastic move. It's a movement deep dive, so it's a video. You guys should go check that out on my website, zachcouples.com. Otherwise, you can follow me on Facebook /ZCouples, Twitter @ZCouples, or Instagram @ZachCouples, or if you're on the YouTube, just search Zach Couples and sign up. But please go visit my website, subscribe to my newsletter where I'll give you some updates and eventually some free stuff, and keep rocking on, team.